So in my last video, I talked a little bit about how I was forced into sports as a child, and then how later in life I started teaching music lessons, and I started to see that some of my students were also being forced into it by their parents, and how difficult it was to watch that, considering that I had been in the same situation. So what I'm hoping to achieve from this video is to talk to parents who may be wondering if they should force their children to do an activity, and also to people who were perhaps forced into doing something they didn't want to do and are now, as an adult, feeling the impacts of that, feeling the trauma of that, because it's certainly something that I've gone through and that I'm still going through, and that I didn't even realize how deeply it had affected me for years. And I want to just talk a little bit about that in depth. So I'll give a little bit of backstory. And let me just preface too by saying I completely understand that kids, sometimes when things get hard, kids want to quit right away. And I'm not talking about that at all. Like, you definitely should encourage your kids more than motivate them. Like, encourage them to do things that they want to do. Give them positive affirmations, positive feedback for the things that they're doing. Definitely, if definitely give them time to do something, and then if they don't want to do it, move on to something else. I'm not saying just let your kids do whatever they want to do. And I think if you listen to the story I'm about to tell, you'll understand more of where I'm coming from. And I hope that if this happened to you, that listening to this gives you some sort of solace in the fact that you're not alone and you're not the only one that this happened to. I started playing sports when I was, I believe, in the third grade. And we played baseball in gym, or maybe it was t-ball. I don't know what it was, but I think I had done well at it. And then I went home and I told my parents that I wanted to play. I wanted to play little league or baseball or softball or whatever it was at the time, and they signed me up for it, which was nice of them. It was nice that they did that, and I had asked, so it's on me, at least in that regard. Um, but I remember going the first day, and it was almost as if it was just cursed from the start, because I don't know what had happened that first practice, but I think these kids had been playing Little League all along, and I was just a kid who happened to get lucky and have one good hit in gym class, so I thought it was something I was good at. So on the field that first day of practice, I was not doing well. I wasn't doing as well as the other kids. And the first thing my dad said to me when I walked off the field was, "You told me you were good at this. What happened?" And that was the first day. That was the first day, and that just sort of illustrates everything that happened afterwards. So, and I'll be honest, like, this is not an easy story to talk about, but I want to say it because I know this has happened to other people, and I really hope there's at least one parent who watches this at some point and tries to make the decision to stop pushing their kids into something they don't want to do. So from then, I kept playing, and I got better, and I played for third, fourth grade, probably fifth grade, maybe. I'm not sure exactly when this happened, but at some point, I think my mom had gotten around to talking to some of the other parents, and she realized there was this thing called travel sports, and that if you get your kid on a travel team, they could potentially get a college scholarship. So from then on, it got very, very serious. It was not taken as a fun task anymore. It was taken really seriously. I remember the first tryout I went to, they put a lot of pressure on me to do well at that tryout. Got on the team, and I wasn't doing so well on my first travel team. I really wasn't. I didn't play a lot. I got benched a lot. I remember, another traumatic event. My mom got mad that I wasn't playing enough, and I think in the middle of a game, she told me to pack my stuff and walk off the field. And I was young, like maybe I was in middle school at this point, but I just remember being so embarrassed having to do that, having to like just leave my team there because I wasn't playing. I was younger than everyone on that team too, and it just seemed so selfish that she made me do that. Um, so then they switched me to another team and another team. I kept switching teams, and I got better over time. They gave me private lessons, which I didn't like, I didn't want to do. They just kept putting all this pressure on me. And if I didn't practice every day on my own after school, I would be in trouble. They would take my belongings away. They would take my guitar away. They would let me not do things I wanted to do. Because there was a lot of things I wanted to do. I really wanted to play guitar. I was in drama club. I was into writing music. I mean, I wanted to do so many other things, and that was part of the difficulty for me, was that it's not like I was saying, hey, just let me hang out with my friends, hey, let me sit around and do nothing all day. I was like, hey, there's all these other things that I want to be doing, that I have a passion for doing, and you're forcing me into this one thing. And we would eventually be traveling every single weekend with travel teams, and it would be practice not only after school, it would be practice after school for the school team when that was in season, and then after that practice, we would go to another practice for the travel team. So some days I was going to multiple practices in a day, and this is a regular school day where I also have to do schoolwork, get ready for the next day, all of that. So it basically meant having no time to do anything else I wanted to do, no time to myself. Occasionally in the off seasons, there would be other teams that would play. They'd put me on a new team. They would send me to different lessons. There was always something to do. Like maybe it slowed down to some extent during certain seasons, but or during certain times of the year rather, but it never was off. It was never off. It was always go 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 go. My parents actually, they this was after I had said I don't want to do this anymore. They bought me a pitching machine for Christmas, and they made me like hit every single day off this pitching machine. And I was a catcher, and I remember also my dad would be like putting this machine up super fast and like putting the balls in and then like pointing it at the dirt so it like hits the ground, and then I have to block the ball. And I remember like I was getting like welts and like bruises all over my body from like blocking these balls from a pitching machine that were like not meant for this activity. Um at some point, I got tendonitis in my right shoulder from throwing, and I went to a doctor. The doctor said I had tendonitis. I think they did an MRI at some point. I think I got a CAT scan as well. Like, I remember having to go for all these tests. And the doctors literally told them that I had tendonitis in my shoulder, and I told them as well that I was going through a lot of pain throwing the ball. And they just didn't care. They said, just keep throwing, you need to keep practicing, you need to keep playing, figure it out, you just need to practice more, you just need to practice more. I'm like, my shoulder's killing me, like, I need to rest. The doctor says I literally have tendonitis. They just didn't care. They said, don't tell the coach, because then the coach is going to bench you and not let you play, and you have to get seen by these coaches to get scholarships. I mean, in hindsight, it's just completely ridiculous. I remember driving home from tournaments, and if I didn't do well at a tournament, if I didn't hit well, if I had missed a throw, if I had missed a catch, if I had done anything wrong at all in the whole tournament, it was just like, the ride home was just insane. I mean, they would be calling me names the whole time. Things that I won't even say on YouTube because I don't want to get a strike for saying these things, but just completely berating me and belittling me to the point that it was just complete verbal abuse, all for sports. And I don't know if people understand what happens in other people's households. I think that this happens to a lot of kids in a multitude of different ways, and I think that the only people who truly understand it are people who've gone through it. I don't even think a lot of therapists and counselors who were taught about these things but didn't go through them understand them. Um, but it was just like, it was complete craziness. And if any healthy person had seen what was happening to me, they would have understand that this was just not okay. Um, it was just really difficult. I mean, it's hard to even go back and think about and talk about. And I kind of can't believe that my parents even thought that they could get me to get a college scholarship, and then I'd have to spend 4 more years of my life pretending that I wanted to do this. Meanwhile, I had been saying I didn't want to do it probably before high school. And I remember one time I had spoken to one of my teammates, and I was just not having a good day. I was having a really bad day, and I think I just like wanted to talk to someone. So I talked to one of my teammates, and then my teammate told the coach that I said I didn't want to play anymore. And then the coach talked to my parents, and then my parents just flipped. They flipped out completely, and they said, "Why would you say that to someone? You can't be saying that. Don't tell anyone you don't want to play anymore. The coach is not going to want you on the team if you say you don't want to play." Just, a whole lecture, and I'm keeping it very PG, but it was not very PG at all. Um, and that was the other thing, is that it was extremely isolating. Like, extremely isolating, because I wasn't with a group of kids who were interested in the things I was interested in. I was with a group of kids who were interested in sports, and I was interested in music. And I couldn't tell them. I couldn't tell them how I felt. I couldn't tell them that I didn't want to play because of what happened when I did. Also felt like so betrayed. So betrayed that I had told my friend that, and she told the coach, and then my parents flipped. Like, there was betrayal, isolation, like just the psychological impact that had on me as a kid is just, it's just completely, I don't wish it upon anyone. And that's why I'm making this video, because this is like not fun to talk about, and I don't like talking about this stuff. But if it saves just one kid from having to go through this, then it's completely worth it. I want to talk a little bit more about the psychology of what happened. And I think what had happened to me in that time is that I had gotten so isolated that I sort of just dissociated. Like, I kind of dissociated and just kind of like went through life just completely like spaced out, not experiencing anything. I mean, I don't remember having good times in high school. I don't remember having fun times. I don't remember like being a happy-go-lucky kid like I used to be before that. And it was because there was just so much pressure on my shoulders to do this thing I didn't want to do. None of the people I was getting to spend time with were people that I really felt were my friends, because I felt like I was keeping a secret from them. It's nothing to do with them. It's not their fault. It's just that I was being forced into this thing that I couldn't be honest with them about who I was. Maybe if I was, we would be great friends even to this day. But the truth is, I don't talk to anyone from that time period. So it basically also set me up later in life to have no friends from my high school period. And I'm sure many of them are lovely people that I would get along with today, but it's just such a traumatic experience from the past that I don't even want to have contact with people from that time in my life. And it has nothing to do with them specifically. It just has to do with this situation my parents created. Some of the people I was on the team with were very nice people, but again, like I said, it's just too traumatic to go back and have to think about it. So that was another thing, like setting me up to just have no close relationships with people that I carry throughout my life. And I had expressed to them many times that it was something I didn't want to do. And they just kept, not ignoring me, not encouraging me to do better, not encouraging me that I'm really good at it and I can get a scholarship and this thing can happen and this great thing can happen. And, no positive feedback. It was all negative feedback. It was all, well, if you don't play sports, you're going to be 300 pounds. If you don't play sports, you're going to work at McDonald's. We don't ask you to do very much. We just ask you to do this one thing, which happened to be play sports every single day my whole childhood. And so I remember pushing back and just getting so much backlash for that, not getting understood at all. And basically, what it taught me to do was to just comply. To just comply with whatever people were doing to me, whatever people were asking of me, whatever was being thrown at me. It taught me to have no self-agency. It taught me to never speak up for myself, because the times that I did, I was punished. And so I took that into my adult life. And I feel like if I tell this to people in a very quick way, and I say like, yeah, I played sports as a kid and it completely wrecked my entire adult psychology in my first few years of adulthood, and still has created things that I'm now trying to solve still and actively working on today. And I understand that, as adults, it's our responsibility to take care of ourselves and to work through these things and to work through our trauma and to make our lives better. And that is like what I'm desperately trying to do on an everyday basis. But it's hard too when you tell people that playing childhood sports traumatized you. And if I hadn't gone through it, I may be one of those people who kind of like doesn't get it. And when they hear that, they're just like, how can playing Little League like traumatize you? Like, just get over it. But I think that if you've gone through it, you definitely understand it. And I think that children are just so vulnerable psychologically that parents need to just really be careful with what they do with their children early on, because I really think that it goes on to just affect the rest of their life. And if you're a parent watching this and you've been forcing your child to play a sport and you feel bad, or you think like, oh, maybe I traumatized them, I shouldn't have done that. Chances are, if you feel that way about it and you feel like you want to make up for it and you don't want to do that to them anymore, chances are you can probably fix it. But my parents aren't like that, and I've tried to talk to them many times about this, and they just kind of blow it off and they say, well, it wasn't that bad, we were trying to do what was best for you. And they blame it on each other. I mean, it's just completely ridiculous. They won't take any blame for it. They won't even really talk about it. So, if you have been forcing your child into something and you feel like you don't want to do that anymore, like, that's great. They're probably going to do something that they like as a result, and you can help them find that, and you can work on that with them, and it can be a beautiful thing. And I think that can, even if there wasn't any trauma there, that can kind of, solve some of it. And I don't think most parents who have their kids play sports are like this, because I just from playing sports for so long, I saw the other parents, and the other parents seem so laid back. They seem so laid back, and there are my parents screaming on the field and the referee kicking them out. That happened to my dad maybe 2 times. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the situation was. Apparently, like, some of it wasn't his fault, but the parents who just get so crazy on the sports field, it's like, calm down. This is a game for kids. They're supposed to learn sportsmanship and how to work together as a team, not to hear you vent your aggressions on a kid's t-ball field. But that's often what happens, unfortunately. Another thing that was really painful from this experience was, I think it just completely wrecked my self-esteem, because if I had not played well, say we had a tournament in Pennsylvania, right? It would be a few hours of a drive from where I live. We would go, and if I had a bad game that night, we'd stay in a hotel because it would be multiple days of playing. And my parents would just be so mean to me the whole time. They just like wouldn't talk to me, or they would just be verbally abusing me the whole time. And I think maybe they thought they were motivating me. I don't know, but verbally abusing me to the point of tears. And then the next day, like, I would have another day of not playing well, because the day before I was just completely wrecked emotionally, and like, now I can't focus. Now I'm feeling terrible, and like, I can't play well in that state either. So then I would have a bad game that day, or have multiple bad games that day. And then on the multiple hour car drive home, I would just get screamed at for hours about how I was, not doing well. And I think a big part of sports and how kids get traumatized with sports is the parents start to project their own problems onto the child's sports performance. And I think that my parents had just a slew of problems of their own that got injected into me playing sports, which is supposed to be a fun thing for kids to like learn and grow. And it became a way for them to just vent all of their emotions and frustrations. And another thing that was really difficult with this, and something that I want parents to really understand, and people who went through this, trauma survivors, to understand as well, is that love should not be contingent upon athletic performance. Kids need love that's unconditional. I understand if a kid does something wrong and you need to talk to them about that, like, that's different. But if a kid just like strikes out in baseball, you can't reprimand them for that. Like it just does not equate. Like what you're teaching the kids is that love is not unconditional, that love is very conditional upon athletic performance. And maybe love is not unconditional in many places. But if parents can give their kids love that's unconditional, you're setting those kids up to do way better in life than if they just get a sports scholarship, which I did end up getting. And then I ended up quitting the team because I just hated it so much. And I was finally on my own, and I just got to the point where I said, you know what? Forget about this. I'm not doing this anymore. And I just got the courage one day to stand up for myself and just go into the coach's office and say, I don't want to do this anymore. And then it also was a big red strike on the beginning of my college career because the coach said to me I was not who she thought I was. She gave me this whole, this whole thing that I had to get berated by this college coach. Then everyone on the team didn't like me because I left and they were down a player. And it was just like I didn't want to do that to them either, but I couldn't keep pretending that I wanted to do this thing that I had no interest in doing. And I guess one of the worst things that came from this situation, and trust me, I'm still sort of unpacking this situation like every day, still. Um I think one of the worst things that came from this trauma that resulted from this was losing my will. I went into adulthood having no will. I didn't think I had control over anything because my whole childhood I didn't. And like I said before, I became so passive, and that's not good. You do not want to teach your kids to go into adulthood being passive because there's going to be people who will take advantage of that for sure. And I had my fair share of that as well, to the point where I kind of had to look back and think like, well, why do these bad things keep happening to me? And to realize, oh, I'm really passive. I'm not speaking up for myself. I'm just allowing people to do things to me that they shouldn't be doing. And when I traced that back, I realized that's from years, years, maybe probably almost a decade of being in a situation that was really stressful for me, in which I was being abused, and I had to just wake up every day and take it. And it put me in the fight or flight mode for sure, and it trained my body to feel comfortable in that. So later on in life, when bad things were happening, when I was in situations that were less than ideal, I didn't realize they were bad because my body was just like, yeah, this is normal. It's normal to feel terrible. It's normal to be with people who make you feel terrible. It's normal to be completely traumatized in a situation and just have to stay in it, which is not the case at all. But I just want people to know that when you force your kids into something for an extremely long time and they express that they don't want to do it, and they keep expressing that they don't want to do it, and you keep imposing and forcing your will upon them, that's what's going to happen. They're going to become passive, and it's going to affect them the rest of their life. Maybe they get over it. I don't know. Maybe I'll completely come out of this at some point. Like that's part of the goal for the channel, and part of talking about all these things is like to just get it out in the open and like stop being passive about it and stop thinking that it's a situation in which I have no control over, because I do at this point. Back then I didn't, but I do at this point. And so I know this is kind of an odd video, kind of a little bit of like a big trauma thing. Like, I hope somebody watches to the end. I don't know if anyone will. If you did, please comment. I would appreciate that so much. Um, but yeah, like, if this happened to you, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry this happened to you. You need to work on yourself, because the people who did that to you aren't going to help you. And if you need to distance yourself from them, do it, because your health and your life and your success, your happiness, just it can mean so much. And if that means that you have to like distance yourself, do it. Do it. Start figuring out what you need to do. And I think anyone, if you've had childhood trauma, it's hard. It's hard to unpack this stuff. It's really difficult, but if you don't do it, you're just letting them win. You're just being passive once again. And I sympathize with anyone who wants to go that route, because it's maybe on some level easier than unpacking it and dealing with it and talking about it. But I think in the end, that's maybe the only way to get past it, if any. I'm not a psychiatrist. I can't, I'm not a therapist, and I have training in this. I just have personal experience. And that's what I try to talk about on this channel, is just talk honestly and be vulnerable and talk to you from my personal experience, and hope that maybe this can help someone else, because it's helped me. If you're a parent, hopefully this is giving you some advice about, how to deal with these situations with your kids. And hey, I would love to hear your stories. If you want to comment them below or reach out to me on social media, I'll have all of that on the screen and in the description below as well. And if you can subscribe to the channel, it would mean so much to me. It would help me grow this channel and help get this material out to other people who could potentially help. That's why I make these videos. I'm not a monetized page. I don't get paid for this yet. Maybe at some point I will. That'd be cool. But really, I just want to tell the story and just hope somebody gets something out of it. Just hope somebody feels a little better after watching this. So anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.